Arguably, the worst practice in this entire gaming industry isn't just a game publisher like Electronic Arts implementing a predatory monetization system into a game. The worst of the worst is a little deeper than that. Nowadays, publishers are realizing the big financial threat that could ruin their blockbuster AAA game, and that is terrible monetization. Now, thankfully, some publishers understand the value of treating consumers or players like human beings, but not many do, which is why some of these gaming companies have business experts and psychologists in charge of monetization, coming up with the newest and best way to exploit or manipulate players into spending lots and lots of money. This gaming industry is dreaming of a future in which pay-to-win loot boxes are normalized, but it doesn't and won't stop there, as companies like Electronic Arts and Activision have for the last few years been caught filing patents for horrendous monetization systems that have not been implemented or seen yet. They are making preparations for the years ahead, but there is one giant roadblock in the way, and that simply is criticism, backlash, anger, outrage, and controversy. In 2017, there was a wake-up call for this entire industry, and that was the massive Star Wars Battlefront II loot box debacle, which has had very real ramifications that are still being felt today. It was an important moment that needed to happen. It showed gaming publishers like EA that there are severe consequences to their decision to implement predatory manipulative monetization systems into their games. You could argue the outrage surrounding Star Wars Battlefront II and EA's initial pathetic response was what sparked a movement to fight this industry's exploitation of players. Today we're going to examine the newest response coming from CD Projekt Red, which appears to be an indirect shot at the monetization strategies notably used by publishers like EA, Bethesda, and Activision. We're also going to take a look at some of the other publishers that are fighting predatory monetization, and one mobile company's concerning AI technology, which has managed to turn players into whales, with one quote-unquote whale reportedly spending over $150,000 on a single game's macro transactions. This AI technology is the future. It's what executives and investors dream about and could soon bleed on into this AAA gaming industry like loot boxes did years ago. But as usual, if you do go on to enjoy this content and want to show your support for gaming news coverage like this, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing for more, and turning notifications on so you do not miss out on any new videos. Nonetheless, my support for CD Projekt Red has been clear and obvious because, for one, I believe they delivered arguably the game of this generation with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. But beyond just that, I think they are doing business right, actually being honest with consumers, which is a rare quality in this AAA gaming industry. This is a gaming company that has earned so much goodwill and trust with how they supported and monetized The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, with free DLC and two of the best single-player story expansions ever, which also came at a surprising fair value. But they have also been outspoken about this industry's problem with greed. Infamously, in 2017, CD Projekt Red took to Twitter, denying rumors that Cyberpunk 2077 would feature macrotransactions. They would further emphasize that Cyberpunk 2077 would be just like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, no hidden catch, you get what you pay for, no BS, just honest gaming like with Wild Hunt, we leave greed to others. Which to many gamers and much of this industry, considering the timing of this tweet, which was right when the whole Star Wars Battlefront II loot box debacle was ongoing, the tweet was an indirect shot at Electronic Arts. A few months later, in an interview with PC Gamer, CD Projekt Red's co-founder Marcin Nowinski took a stance against loot boxes, saying the moment gamers feel you're reaching out for their wallet in any unfair way, they will be vocal about it. And frankly speaking, I think it's good for this industry. Things often look great from a spreadsheet perspective, but decision makers often aren't asking themselves the question of how would gamers feel, or is this offer a fair one. Gamers are striking back, and I really hope this will change our industry for the better. Now, just a few months ago during E3 2019, in a secret message from CD Projekt Red, they again took an indirect shot at EA, saying, as you probably noticed, we prepared 2 editions of Cyberpunk 2077. Why only 2? Because when we pre-order ourselves, we don't like to go to Wikipedia to compare content. Which, as some of you might remember, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say outrage, but just many finding BioWare's Anthem's different editions and the release schedule confusing and bizarre, which isn't really a new problem, as notably Ubisoft has been known for their ridiculous different editions which feature all sorts of bonus content, including playing the latest Assassin's Creed or Ghost Recon game days early. The point again though is CD Projekt Red indirectly taking a shot at these greedy decisions, which has given most of these other AAA gaming publishers negative reputations amongst gamers. But now here in October 2019, CD Projekt Red is again taking a shot at a different dirty practice that publishers like Electronic Arts, Bethesda, and Activision love, which is implementing new monetization systems post-release. In an interview with GameSpot, John Mamaeus, the head of the company's Krakow office, stated, "I think it's a bad idea to do microtransactions after you release a game. It seems like it's very profitable though. It probably is a hard decision for the guy that runs the business to decide if we should do it or not. But if everyone hates it, why would we do something like that and lose the goodwill of our customers?" And this CDPR boss would further elaborate on their post-launch plans for Cyberpunk 2077. The Witcher 3's free DLC with big paid expansions was a good model for us. It worked pretty well for The Witcher 3. I don't see why we wouldn't try to replicate that model with Cyberpunk 2077. We're not talking about that yet, but it seems like that would be the smart way to go. Now, what the CDPR boss brings up is a very real problem, and understandably, he presents the question of why would they throw away their goodwill with consumers just for some extra profit, and the answer is actually quite simple. Publishers like CD Projekt Red don't value money over everything, but that can't be said about most other publishers. Activision has become infamous for lying about post-launch monetization plans for their Call of Duty franchise, and with Black Ops 4, like every single year, it started out okay, and months later, after reviews were written and millions of copies were sold, it reached absurd levels of greed with the implementation of pay-to-win loot boxes. This is also why a statement saying they plan to not have loot boxes for Modern Warfare means absolutely nothing when it's already been confirmed by multiple insiders in a beta leak that loot boxes do in fact exist and one day could be turned on with probably the switch of a button. Bethesda has also used this dirty practice recently with Fallout 76. The game started with overpriced cosmetics, but just a few months ago, they began breaking a cosmetic-only promise they made before launch by introducing repair and scrap kit consumable transactions for apparent player convenience. And then most recently, they added a $7 refrigerator and a $5 scrap collector robot, which was originally cut content but reintroduced in the form of a macro transaction because money. Based on some previous leaks, it also appears at one point they were planning on having perk cards in their in-game store, and they also had plans for a sort of loot box which, when purchased, it would give a player a lunchbox, and when opened, the player would receive a temporary gameplay boost. Just days ago, it was announced by Bethesda they had quote-unquote realized after looking at data they needed to move away from keeping the game cosmetic only in order to keep the game fresh and exciting, which I guess is their way of trying to excuse the fact that they blatantly misled players with their monetization plans. I still have no understanding of why any of these non-cosmetic, gameplay-affecting macro transactions are needed, other than the fact that Bethesda needs or wants an excuse to add more attractive macro transactions to increase revenue, which is not a move for player convenience, but instead executive and investor convenience. EA has also, of course, pulled this same nonsense before, notably with, I believe, both Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare games, with the first game activating the transactions 2 months after launch, and EA described the decision as something that would benefit players as it gives them more choice. Now you have the choice to play your way, EA notably said at the time. More recently, with FIFA 20, EA has taken the same approach with their Volta mode, with developers in multiple interviews emphasizing that there will be no transactions at launch. In an interview with Eurogamer, EA stated that Volta had customization options that could be unlocked with a grind currency, and when asked if players could spend real-world money, EA responded saying, "Nope, we won't have macro transactions for launch. I mean, we'll see how things happen in moving forward, but no macro transactions for launch." Later on EA's website, in a frequently asked questions section, it was stated that we've built the game so that in the future we could add in-game purchases if we felt they would add to the experience for players, which I can can say right now, we all know it's coming, and I really do admire the careful wording, even though these developers know it's coming a few months after launch as they have designed the system. And likely, they already have the in-game purchases system ready to go. This is the AAA gaming industry. These dirty practices are sadly so common because publishers want to avoid criticism at launch, which could financially hurt them, but implementing tons of microtransactions and new predatory systems like pay-to-win loot boxes a few months after launch, once millions of copies are sold and reviews are already written, is a terrible practice that thankfully at least one big gaming company is taking a shot at. Now, even though I make a very big deal about the comments coming from CD Projekt Red on these greedy decisions, CDPR is not alone, as there are thankfully other companies taking a stand as well. THQ Nordic infamously just a few months ago took to Twitter saying, "We have not made a commitment on loot box odds disclosure because A, we have not been asked by the Entertainment Software Association, which represents most of these gaming publishers, for a statement ahead of their publication. B, we currently do not have a single game with loot box mechanics published. We do not plan to implement casino-styled mechanics in our games." Which, this is a big deal, as this is yet another big gaming publisher saying what we already all know. Loot boxes aren't like baseball cards, but in fact are virtual slot machines. But additionally, THQ Nordic is taking a stand against this gambling mechanic and also seemingly taking a shot at this loot box disclosure announcement made by Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, which clearly is not enough, as this mechanic should not be in gaming at all. Around this same time, it was announced by Epic Games and Psyonix? I probably said that wrong. Well, they announced that randomized loot crates were being removed from Rocket League later this year in favor of Fortnite Save the World's X-Ray Llamas. In Fortnite, when purchasing a llama, players are told what exactly can be found inside, meaning the consumer knows what they are buying. Back in early 2018, free-to-play Warframe infamously removed a microtransaction system because a single player, one player, used it too much. Developer Digital Extremes explained players could pay a premium currency called Platinum to pull a lever and randomly generate a new fur pattern in different colors for it. The price was 10 platinum or about 67 cents. And we saw, a guy pull the lever like 200 times and it's just like, oh my dear God, what have we done? We've created a slot machine. A few days later, this mechanic was removed and the developers felt a big regret for implementing the feature in the first place. These are the pro-consumer actions I like to see, and these are the games I personally want to support because they've shown a commitment to treating players fairly, treating players like human beings, but unfortunately, that cannot be said about all gaming companies. One of the big reasons why I'm always interested or highlighting mobile or free-to-play gaming is because a lot of the monetization strategies are schemes in place, and these types of games eventually make their way into this AAA gaming industry. Additionally, much of this industry is developing mobile games and have adopted downright absurd monetization, hiding behind the stupid excuse that their predatory greed is acceptable because the game doesn't cost money to play. Which my opinion has always been pretty firm on these quote-unquote free games. Sure, they don't cost anything to install, but if you really want to have fun and get the full experience beyond a half an hour or an hour of gameplay, you'll probably be spending big bucks 9 times out of 10. Notably, a few months ago, developer Jam City of Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery defended their decision to start off the game with a sort of paywall, which has you essentially forced to wait hours or pay to stop a child from being strangled, which is odd considering this is a game aimed at young children. Jam City's president compared the scene or the type of dramatic scene to any TV or movie cliffhanger ending, further adding, "I don't think it conflicts with the business model in the same way that Dickens wrote for magazines before he wrote for books, or television writers write for seasons. We're writing for interactive episodes and chapters. That requires a different type of writing with a different cadence that I believe can be true to the world of Harry Potter. This executive, like all executives, would next emphasize their goal for responsible and fair monetization, because they certainly are focused on that." Mobile gaming company Yodo One CEO recently attended a game developers conference in Australia in which the CEO, I don't know if the right word is, told or bragged to a crowd that one whale, he used that word whale, has spent around $150,000 on mobile game Transformers Earth Wars, which for what it's worth, that's actually not the most money a whale has spent on a mobile game, because in 2016 a 59 29-year-old owner of an appliance store, admitted to spending $2 million on mobile game Modern War. Just an interesting, kind of disgusting fact I wanted to share, but continuing on, Yodo One CEO further told this crowd of developers about the power of their AI technology, which, as Kotaku reported, it analyzes player behavior and session times to predict what players would become higher spenders. The AI could spot potential whales with about 87% accuracy, but we think we can get it up to about 95%, Fong, the Yodo One CEO, said. The model was trained with around 2.5 years of player monetization data, and Fong explained that it was even technically possible to build in logic that would target different players with different monetization packages. As crazy as this all sounds, this is the future ahead for this entire gaming industry. AI technology used to manipulate and exploit players is the next step, as evidenced by a lot of these gaming publishers like EA and Activision having patents with pretty much that mindset. Loot boxes are bad and a paid mechanic that should not be in gaming, but some wonder, including myself, what happens if they do get banned or publishers move away from this mechanic. And the truth is, this battle against predatory monetization is never going to end, because there will always be dirty executives like Bobby Kotick who value money over everything, which is why it's important to support gaming companies that are doing it right and taking a stand for a future in which consumers are treated fairly. All of these gaming companies, AAA, indie, mobile, free-to-play, whatever, have stated they are committed to responsible and fair monetization, but actions speak louder than words, and unfortunately, many of these companies like Yodo One are just saying words. There is zero justification or reason for a game allowing someone to spend $150,000, but sometimes the best and only way to get gaming companies like Electronic Arts to do the right thing is shaming them, and CD Projekt Red's continuing indirect shots of this industry's greed problem hopefully will improve things, but it certainly won't 100% change the mindset of numerous executives and shareholders who are looking at the easiest ways to maximize profits, which, coming up with new exploitative monetization systems, will keep happening, which is why it's important to keep fighting back. Anyway, what do you make of CD Projekt Red's boss taking aim at post-launch monetization and a mobile game developer admitting a whale spent $150,000 on their game? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter, giving opinions on news that I do not always get into video form, so do make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.